as the template. That's policy 211. 212 was taken, so 213 was the next available number. So you'll see in here the technology device insurance policy is really almost identical to the student accident. We just took out one phrase and put in another, so it looks pretty similar to it. But at least we do have a policy on the book, so that was a good idea on her part.
Thank you. Let me just say, do we need to take attendance, or did I just do that mentally? Did you get everybody? Okay, that's what I did. Okay. If you're not here, just say so.
Jack, did you get me? It took a little while for the host to let me in. So you got me on the attendance list, I hope.
I do. Yes, you're on Zoom. Yes.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yep. So budget, finance, and facilities, we've had some preliminary discussions. We did have the auditors with us on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. We had a nice meeting. We got some good news for last year, which we've shared in the past. If you have any questions on your audit report, I would ask you to, everyone did get a PDF of the audit report, is that correct? If you'd like the administration to print you out a bound copy, or at least a stapled copy, let me know. If you don't have a printer at home that can print out all 60 pages, I believe it was, we can do that here for you at any time. Just let us know. And for those on Zoom, we can mail it to you if you'd like us to do that. But let's talk a little bit about CapEx for the summer of 2021. As you know, we have just borrowed some additional funds, a little over $3 million, I believe, to get us through the next few years, so that as we have some annual surpluses, if we have some annual surpluses, we will not need to transfer all of that into the capital reserve, at least for the next 4 or 5 years, because we have these additional bond proceeds, and we will be refinancing something again this year, if I'm correct. But let's talk a little bit about our capital expenditures for this upcoming summer. Is that going to be you, Mr. Bell, Dr. Bell, or is that going to be Mr.
Yeah, I'll start, and then if there's anything else Bill can add if he wants after that. I'll just give you the cursory overview. Just to remind everybody, last year we rejected all the bids for the summer 2020 work. And that was because we were right in the crux of the pandemic. That was back in around, I think, April or May, when we would have approved them. And we decided to just reject all the bids and wait a year. And then we've gone back over those. But basically, almost everything that we're looking to do this summer is stuff that we were going to do last summer, and we postponed it for a year. The biggest thing is the replacement of the cooling tower at Dingman Delaware Middle School. There's also site work. There's some crumbling sidewalks and staircases outdoors on the Dingman's campus. There's also some sidewalk and curbing work to do at DV Middle and High School and the field house. And then there's a variety of items we're going to purchase off of the state bid, things like new cafeteria equipment for their kitchens and things of that nature. So it's not a very big list this year. But Don Flynn did send us the timelines today. So I wanted to share them with everybody just to give you a sense of where we are timing wise. On February 8th, the plans will be available for any interested contractors to get their hands on them. On February 16th, there'll be a site walkthrough for any potential bidders. On March 4th, the bids will be due back to the district. On March 11th, we can review with the board the results of the bid opening. And then on March 18th, the board could approve. And that gives us plenty of time so that we can mobilize and get moving on projects as soon as school closes in June.
Just a moment, Dr. Bell. Jack O'Leary, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, listen, John just put those dates together, and I'm hoping that you could possibly be at one of those meetings in March, either when the bids are opened or just before the board sees them on March the 11th, John, is that what you said?
Yes.
And we can get Jack's input because, let's face it, he's our expert on this, and we could use his assistance. So Jack, if you could make plans with Bill and John, maybe to meet with them one morning, either Zooming or in person.
Yeah, I'd like to see the bid packages before they go out, John, if that's possible, just a copy of them.
Okay, Bill.
So I have some background on them for when they open the bids.
Sure. Sure, when they get them ready to roll, we can get a copy, sure.
All right, thanks.
I don't think we all need a copy, right? I certainly don't. But Jack knows how to read these things better than any of us. So the bids are supposed to go out, be in on March the 4th, but they're going out on February the 8th. Is that right, Bill?
Yes,
So if Jack can get them around the 8th or the 9th, that'd be great.
Yeah, because that gives me a chance to read them and see what they actually detail, you know? So
Okay.
we don't
Yeah,
get
well-
blindsided.
yeah, we could tell them as soon as they have them ready to roll, we'll make sure they send us electronic versions too that we can give to Jack.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, John, I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, that's fine. Are there any questions about CapEx summer 2021? There are a few there are some ovens and some warmers and things like that but they'll be all purchased off state bid. They won't be bidded out, because they're already on state bid. But just there's a lot of catching up we have to do with the kitchen on the main campus and at Dingman's Middle School. It's gotten to the point where Marvin can't fix all these, continue to fix them. And they're so also not only cost inefficient, they're energy inefficient because they're so old. So, but it's one of our smaller summers in a long time.
Just at the right time to not have a giant project on our hand. Okay, so the next item is out-of-district tuition students.
Yes, I wanted, that had come up, I believe Corey brought it up last month or so, and I said we'd put it on a work session when we have a little more time to feel the board out about what you're interested in, what next steps you'd like us to do. So I guess there's a couple questions of, do we want to open up to out-of-district kids to come? Do you want us to survey? If so, do you want us to survey other districts to try to find out if they do it? We could have Billy's office work on what would be a reasonable tuition rate based on how much we get back from the state and reimbursement. Is there a cap on how many people you'd want to bring in? So there's a lot of questions that I just wanted to put it on the agenda, and then I could be quiet a little bit and let you guys discuss it.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is that we have, I would think a majority of the board would like to investigate at this point and have Bill come up with what a reasonable tuition charge would be and to see what availability we have in various schools in terms of space and Corey.
And I think, I think it'd be nice if we did on an audit, of the pros and cons of that, if we see anything, con wise on the administration faculty level, even before you put together tuition and all of those kind of hard things, if there's any cons that you see, as far as letting these kids in, everything along those lines, it'd be nice to have.
Sure.
Thanks.
Are we talking about all students or just cyber students?
All students, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I just want to point out,
Go ahead,
this
go
might
ahead,
be a
Brian.
good time to mention, because I've just been curious, and maybe John knows a little bit, but over by the old Kmart on the 3-lane, they've got 5 new apartment buildings going up that are supposed to open this spring and summer with 132 apartments. And I don't know, how many families are apartment dwellers, but it could result in a bump in our student registrations this summer. So I'm sure you're aware of that, but just as we think about numbers and what our district can accommodate, I think it's a good idea to look into out of district possibilities. But I thought this is a good moment too, to just highlight that there's at least one place where we might see some registration numbers going
True.
up this summer.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
They're building them quickly over there.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was just going to say also that I think it's important to look at that availability component, perhaps before we spend a whole lot of time doing other work on this as far as the tuition and, obviously weighing the pros and cons. But if we're talking about our capacity to accept out of placement or out of district students, if we're only talking about a handful of students, then I'm not sure that may be something that we even want to pursue. So I'd really like to know the availability and what we're looking at as far as number of students that we would even potentially want to accept before
Right.
we move forward and move beyond that.
Right. Yeah, and that pro con that you weigh, because you're in essence you're making your class sizes bigger.
Right.
So is it making it financially lucrative enough to swallow larger class sizes or not? It's a twixt in between.
So
I mean,
we're in
I-
the investigative phase right now.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, I would definitely
So we'll start.
see us,
Go ahead, Rosemary. Sorry.
sorry. I would definitely like to see us investigate the cyber end of it, because I'm sure there are districts around that don't have their own cyber like we do. And we might be able to provide them an option that is less expensive than some of these other outside cybers. And that wouldn't affect our class sizes as much either. We wouldn't be like all of a sudden we had to hire extra teachers or need extra space.
Right.
Cyber is definitely something that we could
I
add
saw
on.
something, it was either today or yesterday on that Larry Feinberg's daily email blast, and it said something like 75 or 80% of districts in Pennsylvania already have their own cyber programs.
do they?
Why
Okay.
are we sending $475 million to outside cyber programs? That's what caught my eye because the number was so big. But I didn't realize the percentage was so high either, that districts, I guess everybody is like us where they decided they had to fight back and have their own potentially.
Okay.
And on that point too, John, just while we're on it, have we looked at any more of the development of our in-house materials on the LMS?
Yeah, in fact, Brian Blom and I had a conversation the other day, and he's doing some exploratory work for us in that end to see what we can do from that standpoint and what courses could we offer with our own people versus contracting out,
Yeah,
and
it'd be
what's the
nice-
cost factor.
Yeah, it'd be
know,
nice to get off of Pearson for a few of those
Yeah.
courses.
Yeah.
Brian, Vicky and I all had a meeting today. Again, it was Brian's third meeting, Vicky and I, and Brian's second meeting with an LMS system out of Pittsburgh. And then it led to a separate discussion just amongst us about growing our own. So what can we do? And especially since we've done a lot of work with Schoology this year. So, it's at least in the exploration factor. And we'd even talked about 15 years ago or more, we actually offered 3 or 4 high school courses 100% online. And then it evolved and we got away from it. But it was our own it was a hybrid thing, and it was courses that we couldn't offer to everybody, but kids were able to actually sit in the library or in the media center and take our own online courses. So I don't know, you might have taken one of them. So, and that's a whole discussion that would have to roll forward, but we are looking into it. Brian's taken the lead and done a great job.
Just for you folks who have joined us, if you have a question, please just raise your hand at any time on the topics. If you have a topic sheet like we have, if you don't, maybe we can get you some. Do we have some topic sheets for when you walk in? So if you have any questions, just raise your hand and we'll recognize you. Right now, we're moving on to academic curriculum and special education, which Pam is leading up that committee. I don't know, Pam, do you have any opening words? Did we lose Pam? Oh, this is going to be the sign for turn off your mute.
I'm trying. Can you hear me? We're still organizing, putting some thoughts together. So we'll have something ready for a couple of comments for the upcoming public meeting as to where we're headed.
Okay, thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
Yep. So, John, would you lead us through the science labs?
Yeah, there were 2 items that came up in recent meetings from the board that you guys asked us to look into. So we've done some homework on it. I'll tackle the first one. There was a question about, now that we had spent money renovating 1970 science labs in the high school. We did that a few summers ago. I think it was 2 summers ago. The question was, are there any other science labs in need of major overhaul? And we worked with the 3 secondary principals and the department chair. And thankfully, the answer is no. We don't have to do any CapEx projects for them. The science labs in DV Middle School are from 1996. Dingman Delaware Middle School are from 1993. So they're still much better off than the 1970 building. And then the ones at the 910 high school are either, they could actually be from 1988 or they could be from the early 2000s. So from a structural standpoint, gas, water, sinks, all those things, they're in good shape. And I just remind them that if there's little things, to continue to put in work orders, if there are any little things that our guys can do, but there's nothing major. So that's good news in terms of science labs. And then the other thing that the board had asked about when we talked about the issue with the Reading Wonders license expiring, which we addressed recently, someone had asked us to get a handle on our software licensing. So I'll turn that over to Peg and she can update us a little bit.
Sure. In your board packets, there's actually a spreadsheet with every department. It's a multi-page packet, and it starts with the English department, and it basically lists the any textbook that has an online resource connected to it, and then the expiration date would be at the bottom. We have, in most instances, the department chairs have kind of coordinated with their members when they purchase a text going forward to either negotiate it out for 10 years or to discuss with them that if their subscription runs out, you're going to have to work with it without the online subscription. Most of them are just copies of the text that they can access remotely. There are some that are specialized software packages that they need annually, and those things then would say an annual subscription. So things that are on an annual basis, you'll kind of see like the reading department, the elementary department. There are a lot of subscriptions that are renewed every single year. It just strictly goes by head count. How many students do we have? Or it's a site license per building. But a lot of the textbook licenses are finite, and you'll see that many of them are 6 years. And then we don't do a textbook adoption for 10 years, but the department chairs all know, and they've kind of dealt with that over the years. But those programs are not necessarily dependent on the software. Of course, like engineering or tech ed, they would be dependent on the software, and they're annually renewed. But other things like a textbook resource is not as dependent as the elementary program. But it was a great exercise to get it all in one document, and now we have it and it's concise. So thank you, Dawn. Appreciate it. Yeah. And thank you to the department chairs. I asked them for that right before Christmas, so that was not a great Christmas present for them to go through, but they were diligent and they all got it back to me, so I really appreciate their hard work. And some of these are kind of small to read. I can send it to you electronically as well, so you can see it. They got it? Okay. Okay, great. Sure.
On the district-wide reading, most of them expire in 2021.
Yep, they're annual.
So some of them said annual, and then those said this year. So I just wanted to make sure that you.
The reading department, like things like you'll see Scholastic, and that's reading and SRI are the assessment tools. So every single year we renew it because it's based on either population or building site licenses. So instead of projecting what our enrollment's going to be, we try to keep it pretty tight so we don't have extra licenses.
I just panicked slightly with all of those that looked like they were going to be renewed this year.
John Bell, can you update us on the cases here at DV?
Sure. Okay. The most exciting thing before I update you on the cases is that Chris Lordy has worked very diligently with the Department of Health, and we are very happy to announce that next Saturday and Sunday, there'll be more information coming out, but next Saturday and Sunday, the 23rd and 24th, the State Department of Health will be coming to DV High School to set up a vaccination clinic for people in the group 1B. So that's your school employees and then everybody else that's in the 1B category. So more information will be coming out either through us or through the Department of Health next week, probably around Tuesday or so. But anybody that's in that 1B category and has an interest in getting the shot, just keep their eyes peeled and their calendars marked for next week. That's a huge coup on Chris's part to get the Department of Health to come here. We were working on some various options with other school districts and trying to come together and how many shots could different hospitals get their hands on. So working directly with the state is really awesome. So just a shout out to Chris for his hard work for making this happen. In terms of updating on cases, just in case people haven't been following along, we had 22 cases over Christmas vacation, which was about a 12-day break. Last week we had 16 cases, and then after 4 days this week, we're at 13 cases. Girls basketball will be shutting down for 10 days because we had someone positive and several quarantined from the team today. So as a safety precaution, we'll just suspend basketball for 10 days like we did with wrestling earlier. But again, it's not too bad. 16 last week, 13 this week. We did have, of course, we had school was online on Monday at Dingman Delaware Middle School, and then school was online on Tuesday at Shahola and the high school. So I just wanted to go over the short-term closure process because it is confusing and it changed a little bit on us since the original guidance we got back in the fall. Originally, they had told us that when you were figuring out whether your school was a small, medium, or a large, that it was going to be based on the number of kids that were physically present in the building. And then that was a verbal guidance that they gave us in the fall. But when they issued written guidance later on, it was on, it's based on your total population that would have been in school if there was not a pandemic. So you got to go back and look at your more actual numbers of how many used to be in cyber, how many used to be in homeschooling, and add your in-person and your Zooms and that thing. So that changed our methodology a little bit. So right now, Shahola has a threshold of 2 cases. If there are 2 cases during a 14-day period, then they switch over to remote. The nice thing is they had 4 cases this week, and the remote resets them at 0 because they had a remote day. DVES is also considered a small school, so it only takes 2 cases to hit the threshold, but they currently have none. Dingman Delaware Elementary School also has a threshold of 2, but they have no cases at this time. The primary school has 2 current cases. The first one will expire on the 18th and the other one will expire on the 21st. They have 2 current cases, but their school is slightly over 500. So they're considered a medium school. So they're at 2 cases, but their threshold is 4. So they're in a good place. So all 4 elementaries are in a good place right now. DV Middle School has a threshold of 4 cases that would put them into remote, and they have none currently. Dingman Delaware Middle School was just closed on Monday, so their clock went back to 0 when they reopened on Tuesday. And then the high school was closed on Tuesday as well. We didn't have any cases yesterday in the whole district. And today we had 1, which is in the high school. So the high school is at 1. So Shahola's at 0, DVES is 0, Dingman Delaware is at 0, DV Middle's at 0. The primary is at 2 with a threshold of 4. The Dingman Middle School is at 0, and the high school is at 1. And the high school's threshold is 6. So we're in a good place after having 3 remote days this week for 3 schools. We're in a good place.
John, what is
Yes.
the threshold for DDMS? You missed that.
Oh, 4.
Thank you.
Yes. So we have 3 at 2, which is Shahola, DV Elementary, and Dingman Delaware Elementary. And then we have 3 schools at 4, which is the primary and the 2 middle schools. And then the high school's at 6. And
Anybody else? Anybody from the public would like to? We have a person. Could you stand and state your name for Julie, please?
We moved here last December, and when there was 20% of the got back excited for friends and teachers, we realized that she had fallen behind. And her reading level was not at par the way it was originally, and other things. And the teacher worked with them, and after about a month, 2 months, she not only caught up, but she now has surpassed the level where she's supposed to be at. And after talking with other parents, we realized that this was a consistent pattern with a lot of the children, because they need schools. So the reason we moved here was not our home initially, your school district. Because we were fighting for our children, because there are opportunities for each family to do what they want in life. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, how many more families appreciate that? Because you know what? When you're happy, you don't take the time to necessarily think. But you'll be able to point to the person how about the work. But I want to also know how much we appreciate it. We love our teachers, we love our administration, we love our schools, and our children are happy.
Thank you very much for those kind words. We will continue to be diligent as we go forward. As I mentioned, it's a day-by-day thing we're doing. Dr. Bell and the staff are really, I don't use the word awesome too much, but they're awesome. And the teachers have been doing an amazing job. So thank you for those kind words.
Jack,
Yes, Pam.
could you give a brief synopsis? I didn't hear a word of what was said. Just very brief, please.
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you.
Mrs. How do you say? Theoropoulos, who you might have sent, I think you sent us some emails over time, yes, was really extolling the virtues of our teachers and our administrators for all the great work they're doing, and that her daughter had originally fallen behind and is now caught up, and looking forward to the end of the pandemic when we're all back to school without these crazy masks and everything. So yeah, it was a very nice thing for you to say. There's no replacement for in-class learning, Pam. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
There you go. Okay, that's going to become a thing now, right? Yeah. Turn off your mute. There you go. Okay, so that's the update on that. And as you know, about anybody else have any items for reopening committee? Otherwise, I just have one item, and that is, you know, we've been working toward getting 100% of our kids back to the school. Jack O'Leary, I know I haven't come up yet with a solution to this problem. I'm still trying, but hopefully we'll get some more folks. When does the period end? The marking period ends? The end of January, when we may expect some more kids to come back. But as for getting everyone back, I guess the goal right now is for August. Unless somebody has a really good idea how we can integrate everyone back into classrooms slowly. I don't have an answer to that, Jack. I'm sorry. I've racked my brain trying to come up with an answer. But it looks like we come to the end of the marking period, and it's an open door, if I'm right, Peg, is that correct? Open door for those who do want to come back. But as for bringing everyone back, you know, I guess we can mandate that for August. I'm not even sure in August if we're all going to have vaccinations by then. Hopefully we will, and we'll be back opening the doors for everyone. But the goal right now is not to have any Zoom in August when we reopen. But that could change depending on how fast the vaccine is rolled out. I'm sorry, yeah, stand up, state your name, please.
But I did have two questions to ask you. One, to be specific,
percentage of students that are currently going in person? And two, with, I know the big COVID vaccine question, and a lot of people are pro-vaccine, a lot of people are anti-vaccine. A lot of people are not confident that they know exactly what ingredient should be going in, making side effects for them. And I know many parents, including myself, are very concerned with doing this. Will there be a COVID mandate once schools return fully back in the fall, hopefully?
Okay, so we'll tackle that first question, Bill, as a percentage. As you know, we have raw numbers. Every month we get those. And I'll give you the raw numbers. And Bill, if you want to do percentages, you can do that. But there are 4,052 total students that we're tracking. 3,139, sounds like it's about 75%, are in person, and 913 are Zooming. And then in addition to that, we have DB Cyber and some placed kids and things like that. So 75%, is that a good number?
It's between 77 and 78%, and that are coming in person, and 22 to 23 are Zooming.
Thank you, Bill. Now for the second question, as a COVID mandate, that's an excellent question. And I think we'll hand that off to Dr. Bell. How's that? John, have you heard anything about mandating anything coming up with the vaccine?
For students or staff?
Well, give us both.
It appears for students, it seems highly unlikely that Pennsylvania, some states have considered it, but it's highly unlikely that Pennsylvania is going to mandate it. Simply because Pennsylvania is much more of a local control, not a central control. Whereas some places like New York State, the governor is talking about possibly mandating it. In terms of employees, that right now, that's not an option. In order for there to be an option to mandate it from an employer standpoint, that'll be something that'll be probably tackled in the courts. But the one thing we've heard is right now they've only received temporary FDA approval, these shots. They have not received permanent or official approval. And so it's a moot point when it's in temporary, because employers definitely can't mandate it when they have temporary or emergency approval from the FDA. But I think it'll be fought in court once we get to that point. But I look at it too, is that, hey, I look at it, people make their own choice. The shot is available, and if they want it, great. If they don't want it, that's up to them. But they're ultimately rolling the dice with their own health. And some people are very comfortable with that. And I think it's people's personal choice. If someone doesn't get the shot, they're not going to make me sick if I got the shot. So it's no different than any of the other shots that we have. So, but that's the latest on it.
Okay, thanks, John. We have some comments from the yeah. Let's get the board comments first.
And it also hasn't been approved for kids under 16, so I don't think it would, yeah.
Right.
I don't think they hear Dr. Bell.
Dawn, was that what you were going to echo?
Yeah, no, I'm good. And also too, on one of the,
Oh, you didn't hear John?
Yeah.
Okay, Dylan, we got to work on that. John said it's highly unlikely that there'll be any mandates, especially with the employees. He thinks that'll go to the courts, and that could, you get something in the courts, and 7 years later you find an answer to it. Yeah. So as of right now, it's unlikely there'll be any mandates. I think the larger question the board is going to have to ask, and the administration is going to have to ask, is what do we do if only 50% of the folks get a vaccine and 50% don't, and people want to still stay home in the fall and Zoom in the fall? Right now, we're saying no to that. Peg's giving me the nod over there. We're saying there will be no Zoom in the fall, but we take it day by day. Yes, Mrs.
I know many of those families who decided to cyber or stay home, and I communicate with them regularly because their biggest fear is having the kids pulled out back and forth. They felt that the inconsistency of not knowing and having a regular regime was going to hinder them more than just staying at home having a regular schedule. So I think with time, my prediction based on that response is, as long as we stay open with care,
Mhm.
you know, following the numbers, but being consistent in having a regular curriculum where the kids come in and do their thing weekly. Eventually, they'll all come on board because there will be nothing to fear as far as it is.
Thank you. Anybody else on the board? Yeah, Dylan, we got to work on that.
Yeah, the microphone's up there.
Oh, I
If
see.
we have them move up there, if they're gonna continue to speak, I have it as high as it goes. I can barely hear them.
Okay. So perhaps next time we
We'll
meet,
move it, yeah.
we'll
didn't
have
know
a microphone up here,
Yeah.
like we used to do that in the past, and people would come down the aisle to speak. So maybe we'll do that starting next week. But I'm sorry, you at home, if you can't hear everyone, we are working on it. And we have expert people working on it. Thanks, Dylan. Let's see. We discussed everything but special topics and community relations, and that's an open bag. So, John, you want to talk about?
We don't have anything on the agenda that falls under that category tonight, but I wanted to ask if the board had anything before we go to the review of the upcoming agenda. Did the board have anything else they wanted to bring up?
Brian, Jack, Pam? No? Okay, I'm seeing nothing there. Okay. So let's move on to the upcoming agenda. Who's taking that, Peg or John? I have my agenda, so.
Does anybody have any questions for reports under 5 or treasurer's report 6 or bills for payment 7?
Well, I'm sure I'll have some questions for bills for payment. I just haven't reviewed them yet. This is from,
Sure.
I'll give Bill a holler during the week, and we'll go over some of the payments that I find to be interesting. Anybody?
Category 8 is personnel, and it's pretty light this time of year. There's not a lot going on personnel wise compared to the beginning of the year or the end of the year.
Mhm.
But we can look at approvals because that's always where the meat is. Under item number 9, items for approval.
Yeah.
4 teachers up for tenure, which is always an exciting thing for them.
Yeah.
And then approval of the audit report. The letting of annual bids for things like general supplies and things of that nature. And then item D was one I wanted to bring up to you. Under 9D is the approval to amend the district calendar, changing Friday, January 29th from a full day to a half day for students. We're asking if the board would consider this again, like we did at the end of the first quarter, to give the teachers a chance to get caught up. And then because the grades are due the marking period ends on Thursday, the 28th, and grades are due on that following Monday, which I believe is February 1st. So we're asking you to consider giving the teachers the half day to get caught up on everything. So that's similar to what we did in the first quarter.
Jess?
I just have one question in regards to that. I agree with it. If we end up having snow days and the last day of the marking period moves, are we going to keep the 29th as the day that we would give a half day to the students?
If we have one snow day, we could, because what would happen is Friday would be the last day. If we had 2 snow days, then the last day wouldn't be till Monday. The last day wouldn't be till Monday the 1st, because it's the last day, the second marking period is the 90th day of school. So right now I gave us 1 day wiggle room in case we were to have something pop up between now and then. Even though the forecast, knock on wood, and the forecast looks pretty good for next week. But yeah, that I did build in 1 day as cushion, because that's that Friday is actually the first day of the 3rd marking period. But it could be the last day of the 2nd, but we would still be okay.
So I guess if we did have, let's say we did have 2 snow days and it ended up the last day of the marking period ended up being that Monday, is there a reason that we still couldn't just keep it that Friday just for consistency's sake? Because I do think it's, I mean, parents are, if we're going to approve this next week, parents are going to plan something to do with their children for that half day.
Right.
I think saying that that's
Yes, I think,
going to be difficult for
Yeah.
for families to plan for.
no, I agree with you. I agree that people should just count on that day is going to be the half day.
Right.
And because we can finagle it and make it work. You know,
Right.
it
Okay.
gives us a cushion, and it's pretty unlikely we'd have 2 snow days between now and then. But that way, even if we did have 1, we're okay. But even if we have 2, we'll stick with it for parents so they don't lose their sanity trying to juggle and come up with a plan C, you know, to get coverage for to supervise their little guys while they go to work. So we'll tell them that's solid. Okay.
And I'm glad that we're going to do that again, because I think that that's a nice thing for the teachers to have that day to plan and to get caught up.
Hey, John, real quick on that appointment for the Title I data coordinator, that's grant funded?
Yes.
Okay.
We had actually kind of set that up through the grant last year, but I didn't get it on the co-curricular appointments at the beginning of the year. So I wanted to put it on for the middle of the year. Actually training Joy and trying to learn a lot more about the data collection and so on. So in fact, we just met today for 3 hours. So
Anybody have any other questions about anything on the agenda at this time? You know, you can always reach out to us during the week with anything that might pop up. This is just a first view of it, a first peek. All right, Jack, I think we're at everybody's thing that they all want to fight to make the motion. Actually, we don't even have to motion to adjourn, right? It's only a work session.
Yes, and before we say that, Monday is Martin Luther King Day, and here at DV, we celebrate citizenship, we celebrate citizenship, we teach justice, we teach democracy, we teach patriotism, and all of that comes together on Monday. So if you all can just, on that day, bow your heads for just 30 seconds and thank God for the blessings of America. With that, I will adjourn. Thanks, John. Appreciate you being there. Brian, Jack.
Thank you.
Yep. Pam.